Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Lorianne. This feels entirely strange to me because I'm sitting in the bedroom that I basically grew up in. And I used to film YouTube videos in this room all the time when I was like, let's see, this was my brother's room when we moved into this house. And then when he left, I took it because it was a little bit bigger. And so from like 19, I would say, from 19 until when I moved out at like almost 25, this was my bedroom. So I filmed a bunch of YouTube videos in here for old channels that I had. And so it feels super weird to be sitting in here filming a video now, but here we are. If you missed our last video, it was our moving day vlog. My husband and I and our 1-year-old son Josiah moved back in with my mom and my stepdad because we are getting our house ready to sell, and then once it sells we're gonna hang out here for a little while, figure things out, figure out where we want to go, save some money, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, buy our forever home. So if any of that journey interests you, feel free to subscribe, come along for the ride. It's sure to be a wild one because it is us and it just always ends up working out that way. For today's video, I'm going to be sharing all of the things I learned in my first year of parenting. I'm a little bit bummed out though because I was supposed to be doing this video with Mr. Toll, and our schedules have just been so crazy that we just haven't had the time. We tried to film this video one other time like 2 weeks ago, but Josiah woke up mid video and we tried to film it with him, like hanging out with us, and it just, he went hog wild and he was like knocking the tripod around, and so we were just like, let's come back to this, but we've just been so busy that we haven't had time to sit down together and film, and I don't want to keep pushing this out anymore, so I'm just gonna sit down and do it. I'm a little bit bummed because I think it would have been cool to kind of get the dad's perspective on this. Maybe I can get him to sit down and do one like by himself where he talks about all of the dad things that he learned. But I doubt he's going to do that. I really doubt that he's going to sit down solo dolo and create that content for you guys. So let me just like take that back because I shouldn't even put it out there. He's not going to do it. So the first thing I want to talk about is probably the most important thing. If you don't take anything else away from this video, take this away. And that is that it's okay if it's not perfect. And when I say it's not perfect, I mean that goes for like everything. It's okay if the baby's not perfect. It's okay if that baby cries a lot and it spits up a lot and it's not sleeping very well and it's not what you envisioned your baby to be like. It's okay if your house isn't perfect. It's okay if that house is a hot mess. It's okay if you're a hot mess, girl. It is okay to not have everything be perfect. If you've been around for any amount of time, then you've probably heard me mention this in videos in the past, but we live in a very, very social media and Pinterest perfect society where this idea of like perfection is constantly like almost being forced down our throats, you know? Every time you're scrolling through that Instagram feed and you see that mom holding her newborn baby for the first time and she literally has her lashes filled and her eyeliner's on point and her hair is perfect beach waves, and we're like, that's not what I look like when I was in the hospital, sleep deprived because the nurses kept knocking on the door every 30 seconds, rocking my newborn screaming baby. Like, that's not what I look like at all. I'm here to remind you that that is okay. It is okay if you have company coming to visit your baby and your hair is matted and you haven't washed it in several days. Like, the baby is alive, you're surviving, the house is still standing, and some days your best is all you can do, okay? And it might not look to the outside like you're doing your best, but you know deep down that you are, and I just need to remind you that that is okay. It's really hard, especially in the beginning. I remember feeling like I was like the laziest do nothing individual because I was home on maternity leave and I had all these ideas in my head for all the things that I would do on maternity leave. Like, you know, newborn babies, they sleep a lot during the day. And so surely I was going to be able to organize the linen closet and the spices and all of the things, and I was gonna be trying out new meals and all of this stuff, right? And when none of that was happening, and then also my house looked like a bomb went off at the end of the day, and my laundry was still piling up, I like couldn't wrap my mind around what the heck, what am I doing all day? Why is this all like this? I'm literally home all day. It turns out that taking care of a newborn is actually like really hard, and it's really hard to do anything when you're stopping to feed them every like 2 to 3 hours. And so, you know, allow yourself some grace, cut yourself a little slack. It's okay if it's not perfect. Perfection is highly overrated. You just have to remind yourself that that Instagram feed is a highlight reel. And the things that you see on Pinterest, a lot of the times, those are created by content creators who have made it their job to put that content out there. People are creating content often to entertain you or inspire you. So you have to remember that and not let it make you feel like you're not doing enough. Hopefully that all made sense and that you've retained that and it's sitting well with your soul. Let's move on. Next up, have patience. ... with your partner. We all know that you need to have patience with babies and children in general. They don't understand things the way that we understand things, and so you have to have a little bit more patience when you're approaching babies and children. That makes sense to all of us. Sometimes we forget to apply that same patience with our partners and we get frustrated because we're like, you're a level-headed adult who has experienced things in life. Like, how are you not able to figure out what I'm figuring out the same way and the same pace that I'm figuring it out? I remember being frustrated with Mike quite a bit in the beginning because I just like wasn't understanding how he wasn't like picking things up faster. I think in every pair you probably have like that one person that's probably a little bit more nurturing, dare I say maternal, because I think that men can be maternal and they can have more nurturing sides to their personalities than women sometimes, but I think it depends, and I think there's always probably like that one and one and it balances out. So in our relationship, I kind of am the one who just kind of is more nurturing and like instinctively just kind of took to parenthood, right? Mike obviously had to learn all of those things. And so I had to constantly remind myself, like, Laurent, he's never done this before. He just doesn't have that instinct or maternal, you know, kind of personality the way you do, and that's okay. Same patience that you apply to your baby when they're screaming in your face at 2 in the morning, like you have to also apply that patience to your partner, and you have to show them and take the time to really teach them so that you both are on the same page. You both know what you're doing. You feel comfortable leaving the baby with them. They're comfortable leaving the baby with you, and that'll just make your lives easier, you know, going forward. Next, you know more than you realize, so just chill out and trust your instincts. The beginning of motherhood was so filled with self-doubt for me. Like, I just was like, am I doing it right? Am I doing it okay? Is he okay? Does he like me? Does he love me? Does he know I'm his mom? Like, there was a lot going on in my head pretty much around the clock. And that was exhausting in itself. But when I took a step back and I looked at what I accomplished, I really realized that, like, I know more than I thought I did, and I don't need to worry so much, and I don't need to stress myself out so much about, am I doing a good job? Is my baby smiling? Are they gaining weight properly? Are they playing? Are they happy? Like, okay, then I'm doing a good job. Like, chill out. You also have to realize that, like, you're not gonna know everything at first, and that's okay. You will learn your baby over time, and then eventually it's all just kind of second nature to you. And sure, I think it gets easier the more children that you have, you know, with 2 and 3 and 4. You probably have a more firm handle on like what you're doing, but also at the same time, every single child is different, and so there's always going to be some kind of learning curve, and you'll figure it out as you go. It's okay to not know everything at first. You'll figure it out as you go, and once you relax, that kind of like instinct kicks in, and you realize that, like, which kind of leads me to my next one, which is no one knows your baby better than you. Let me repeat that. No one knows your baby better than you. I say that because there will be people that try to tell you to do things with your baby that you don't feel like they're ready to do, or there will be doctors that try to tell you something about your baby that you don't feel is accurate, or maybe you're trying to tell a doctor something that you've noticed and the doctor's like, oh no, I don't think that's a thing, but you are like, no, I know my baby, that's a thing, and I want it looked at. Your child can't speak, so ultimately you are their biggest advocate. And so that means not letting anybody tell you that they know your child better or they know your child's capabilities better, because they don't. Always remember that. Nobody knows them better than you. At the end of the day, you are mom. You are with them day in, day out. You see all of the expressions, you see all of the emotions, you see all of the behaviors, and you have to trust that you know exactly who your baby is and what your baby needs, and nobody can tell you otherwise. Next up is that listening to too much advice or reading too many parenting books ultimately is just going to drive you crazy. Parenting is tough and it's messy, and I don't think that there's any one particular guidebook that can help you navigate through it all. I think that there are so many different parenting styles and philosophies that you could research and look up, and you can say, oh, I want to be XYZ. And once you get into parenting, you might realize that that style doesn't fit your lifestyle, or it doesn't fit who your child is and what your child needs. And ultimately you have to switch. I have a whole video on my motherhood expectation versus reality. And I think that part of being able to be a parent is being able to just like yell plot twist and just kind of switch it around and go in a new direction, because it's constantly changing with the seasons of life and the stages that your child is in, and sometimes they need one form of you that they might not need 7 months from now. They might need you to be a different parent in 7 months because they're going through something different or they're developing different, and you really just have to be able to pivot and go with it. That's really what I've learned. The second you become a parent, you kind of become bombarded with people's kind of opinions and their unsolicited advice, all of the things. It's like, oh, well, you should do this because I did this with my 3 kids and they're all perfect. Or I did this with my son and he loved it. Or when I had kids, this is how we did it. And you know, that's all fine, but I kind of just like take everything with a grain of salt, or like one ear out the other kind of thing. Listen, sometimes you get a gem in there, but for the most part, a lot of it is just, it might not be helpful to you. It might go against the parenting style that you're trying to pursue, or that you have decided works for you and your child and your family. You kind of just have to smile and nod. Like, they mean well, they're trying to help. It just might not be helpful to you. And that's fine. Don't feel the need to like take all that advice in and try it if it's not something that appeals to you in any kind of way. Also, you know, I love when people are like, oh, well, when I had kids, this is how we did it. And it's like, I mean, there's reasons that things change because, you know, doctors and science, and, you know, we've learned that maybe that wasn't the safest way, or like that wasn't the best way to do that. And I kind of feel like that last one kind of leads into this one, which is like, take things at your own pace and do them when you're comfortable and ready to do them. I probably waited a little bit longer to like start introducing Josiah to like purees and things like that. I especially feel like I waited a little bit longer to start introducing him to kind of like the more allergen foods, like the peanuts and stuff like that. I wasn't ready. I wasn't comfortable. My son is literally a year old and still has no teeth. And so I wasn't comfortable even starting to give him solids when the pediatrician and other people who had kids the same age as my son were starting to introduce solids to their children. I didn't feel comfortable. I just felt like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this wrong. Like, I'm seeing, you know, mothers on Instagram that have kids the same age as Josiah, and their kids are eating, you know, broccoli and pieces of peaches and things like that. And like, my kid is literally eating pureed beets. Like, what am I doing? I'm doing something wrong here. I should be doing what they're doing. And then I had to take a step back and realize, like, hey, I'm not comfortable giving him that yet because I don't feel like his gums are strong enough. I don't feel like he has the best handle on chewing yet. Like, again, you know your baby better than anybody else. And so I struggled with that for a little bit. And then I took a step back and went, what's the harm in waiting 4 weeks or 3 weeks to introduce him to something? Probably no harm at all. Like, none at all. It's not gonna decrease his chances of getting into a good college if he even wants to go to college. Like, nothing is gonna be different, okay? It's just, I waited 3 weeks longer to give him a solid food than, you know, somebody else on my Instagram timeline. It's not a big deal. Do things when you're ready. Don't let the pediatrician rush you. Don't let the people around you rush you. It should be fun. Like, doing certain activities, feeding your baby, all the different things, like, those should be fun. And if you're super, super, super anxious about doing it because you don't feel they're ready and you're not ready, then it's not going to be fun for you. So just take your time. Next up is like, babies know more and are way more aware of things than I think we realize or give them credit for. I also learned pretty early on, like, kind of once Josiah started kind of developing a personality and he was like less of like a potato, like what I call like newborns. Once he kind of started getting into the stage where he was kind of like moving or like looking around and all of that stuff, basically developing his little personality, I realized that he is incredibly perceptive to the moods of those around him. I notice that if there's any tension between Mike and I, it throws him off. We really try when we are having arguments or disagreements or whatever not to yell in front of the baby. We're not perfect. Has it happened? Sure, we've shouted in front of the baby. But we really do try to like curb that and not do that and table those kinds of arguments until he's not around. But even still, when we're just kind of like bickering or just like going back and forth or just like kind of tense banter, he knows, he can tell, and he becomes incredibly fussy, which in a lot of cases helps because it diverts our attention away from each other and to him and gives us something else to focus on. And then before we know it, like, it's like, what were we even upset about? Nothing, not a big deal. That happens with him every time he's present when there's kind of a tense moment between the two of us. Also, another thing is that Josiah really realizes when you are distracted and when he doesn't have your full attention. And again, it changes his behavior. He becomes fussier or he becomes needier. I always joke in the morning he is like the most pleasant child ever during the week, especially until he sees me pull out my work laptop. It's different from my personal laptop. That one he doesn't seem to mind, and it's probably because I'm not on it a whole lot when he's present. But my work laptop, as soon as he sees that black laptop come out, it's like a switch flips, and all of a sudden he just becomes a lot needier. He's like throwing himself on top of me. He's pushing the laptop off of me because he knows that when that comes out, it's out for like 8 hours and I'm working. And I'm trying to work and be mommy, and he doesn't want that. He just wants mommy. And so his whole behavior, his whole mood changes on Monday through Friday when he sees that laptop come out. It's incredible. And then once it goes away, it's like we're back to, you know, a different baby. He's incredibly perceptive and he knows way more than we give him credit for. He knows how to work our phones. Like, he doesn't know how to like do anything on them, but it's not uncommon to see him grab one of our phones and go like this. And just like even the way we do hand motions, like he just knows because he watches us all of the time. And so it's crazy. Babies, they know so much, which kind of means that you have to be aware of what you're doing in front of your baby and how you're acting in front of your baby, because they can tell and they're probably going to imitate those behaviors and those actions as they grow, because it's being demonstrated for them. So keep that in mind when you're going about your everyday lives. Is this something I would want my child to do? Me scrolling on my phone, would I want to see my child doing this when they're, you know, 3 years old, just scrolling endlessly on a tablet or on a phone? No, probably not. So maybe I should put my phone away and do a different activity. So just be cognizant of all the things that you do in front of your baby, even in year one. Next up is follow your growth and milestone apps and advice from your doctor, but loosely. Every baby is different and they're all going to do things kind of at their own pace and when they're ready to. You can certainly encourage things, but again, like, they're not going to do it until they're ready. And there's obviously a range where you're safe, and then there's kind of a range where there's cause for concern. And until you get to that place, don't worry about it. Your baby will get there eventually. I remember being concerned because I was seeing like babies on my social media feeds, like at like 4 or 5 months, like sitting up unassisted for like long periods of time. And my son wasn't even trying to do that. He was not even trying. And I remember going to the doctors with him, the pediatrician, and I love our pediatrician. She's literally the greatest. But I remember her being like, and is he trying to sit up on his own? And I'm like, no, not really, no. Like, sometimes he tripods, but literally just for like seconds, and then he shows no interest in it again. And she's like, okay, well, he really should be like doing that more, and he really should be sitting up on his own in a few weeks. And he wasn't. And every time I would try it, he would just kind of get frustrated and he wouldn't want to do it. I told her he doesn't seem to be interested in sitting, but he seems really, really interested in trying to crawl. He rocks on his hands and knees all the time. And she's like, well, it's very early for him to be crawling, so I don't think that he's ready for that yet, but the sitting thing definitely work on. Well, guess what? Josiah started crawling before he sat up on his own. As a matter of fact, those 2 milestones were almost a month apart. He started crawling right as he turned 7 months old, like literally 2 days before he turned 7 months old, he started crawling. And then towards the end of that month, about 3-4 weeks later, is when he sat up unassisted for a long period of time for the first time on his own. I was so surprised that like that's how that worked out. I was like, wow, you're mobile before you're gonna sit. But now that I know Josiah as well as I know him, that makes more sense than anything, because that kid doesn't like to sit still for not a darn thing. He wasn't interested in learning how to sit up because that meant being still, and being still is not something that he ever wants to do. So he started moving, and then he was like, let me try this sitting thing. Yeah, I was concerned about the sitting thing at first. I know that Mike is a little bit concerned about the fact that he is a year old and doesn't have a single tooth. I can see that he has 2 bottom teeth that are like trying to sprout out. It's just taking forever. And I often have to remind Mike, like, it's okay. He doesn't let the fact that he doesn't have teeth stop him from doing anything. He eats all kinds of things. Obviously, we don't give him anything too hard, but he really doesn't let it slow him down much. Doctors also said, you know, she doesn't get concerned about this kind of thing until around the 18-month mark. So until we get to that point, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to have faith that those little teeth will pop up when they're ready to pop up. And the very, very, very last thing is that you just have to have fun with it, okay? Life is short. Before you know it, your kids will be grown up. Do the fun things, make the messes. Don't worry about it being perfect. Just get in there and have a good time, because those are the things that your kids are going to remember. And I kind of just know that from like being a kid myself, obviously. You can kind of think back on your life and remember like the best memories that you had were the ones where your parents were having fun with you and you guys were having family fun together. And those moments often weren't the perfect ones, but somehow they were. I've literally just realized in filming this that I have one light behind me on and one off, and I'm really sorry if that bothers you, because now I'm noticing it. It's bothering me. Why didn't I turn that light off? I didn't notice. I'm not really that great at this whole like YouTube thing. I'm kind of a hot mess. Hopefully that's part of the appeal or something. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and it spoke to you on some level. If you did, you can give this video a thumbs up. Always leave any questions or comments you have for me down below. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos from the Tool Tribe in the future, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.